We learned today that COVID vaccines were being tested at biolabs in Ukraine.
The story that's been told and generally accepted about the origins of COVID-19 are simply not true.
Let me repeat that. Redacted has learned from a trusted source that COVID vaccines were being tested at biolabs in Ukraine. Biolabs that Hunter Biden was intimately familiar with. As Redacted reported months ago here on this program, Hunter Biden was involved in funding those biolabs in Ukraine.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Biolabs that the U.S. State Department has confirmed existed and testified during Congress that they were involved in biological projects.
Yeah, which they wouldn't go much, in greater. Well, for months they denied it. They told us absolutely not. That's a joke. There is no such thing.
Well, it's not what you know. It's what you can prove in court.
But then, of course, they did confirm it reluctantly.
Yes.
But now we know, and what we'd long thought was that there was that they were testing COVID-19 vaccines in Ukraine at these biolabs. As we reported on Redacted in 2014, a firm called Meta Biota, worst name ever.
Sorry. Not really.
Which specializes in detecting, tracking, and analyzing potential disease outbreaks, signed an $18 million federal contract.
The document, titled Potential Exposure to 2019 Novel Coronavirus During 7th Military World Games in October 2019 in Wuhan, Hubei Province, China, was written by Canada's Surgeon General.
As a subcontractor for Black and VH in Georgia and Ukraine, Meta Biota was started with the help from President Biden.
I'm going to work like the devil.
And from President Biden's son, Hunter Biden. And his investment firm, Rosemont Seneca Technologies Partners, which he founded alongside John Kerry's stepson in 2009. Russia wants to know, of course, hey, what bioweapons is the United States developing in these biolabs in Ukraine?
I understand people's objections, but at some point you've got to say to people, look, the evidence, not just from Britain, but around the world is crystal clear. There's no serious person disputing it.
Turns out some serious shit's being built there. A few weeks ago, Russia officially submitted a complaint with the United Nations to expose this secret. What is the United States hiding there? And the United Nations said, sorry, we can't tell you the truth.
We thought the mRNA SARS-CoV-2 sequence was this synthetically recreated virus that was encapsulated in lipid nanoparticles. No, it's actually a computer sequence. It is a computer program sequence.
So you're talking about the injections and the virus, the so-called virus, which is not a virus.
No, it's a nanoweapon.
And they're both this thing. They're these biosynthetic parasites.
Yes.
UN Security Council votes against probe into U.S. biolabs.
Not into that one.
Not interested. Of course, you'll recall the U.S. denied there were any biolabs in Ukraine at all. The Department of Defense even called it Russian propaganda, laughable Russian propaganda.
The intelligence that we're seeing today is still not encouraging.
Shut up, don't ask questions, said John Kirby when he was asked about this by reporters on March 9th.
And on this issue of military biological labs in Ukraine that the Russians keep raising, can you basically explain to us what type of relationship, if any, there was between the Pentagon and the Ukrainian side on any biological labs? When was the last cooperation, and what do you have to say about these Russian accusations?
The Russian accusations are absurd. They're laughable. And, in the words of my Irish Catholic grandfather,
You got a bigger fish to fry, lad. You're on the camera, the lad is.
a bunch of malarkey. There's nothing to it. It's classic Russian propaganda. And I wouldn't, if I were you, I wouldn't give it I wouldn't give it a drop of ink worth paying attention to.
Yeah. Don't write about it. Just look the other way. Don't even do anything about it. So, of course, you knew they'd want to keep this all quiet.
To summarize, in October 2019, when the Canadian military deployed their athletes to Wuhan, China to participate in the Military World Games, many came home with what was described at the time as severe pneumonia. 1/3 of the military athletes were sick enough to be quarantined in the back of their transport plane on the way home to Canada. And when news of the coronavirus broke around the world just a few short months later, many of the military athletes who had been sick wanted to test for COVID-19 antibodies to see if they actually had COVID-19 and not just a bad pneumonia. It was the very least the military brass could do, but of course the military denied them. Why? Well, if several dozen Canadian soldiers tested positive for COVID-19 antibodies in January of 2020, having been infected in October 2019, the Chinese would be in big trouble. It would be irrefutable proof that they had lied about the origins of the virus.
Now, when it suits you to play along with somebody else's game, but you're not playing along with the chemical stuff, but the end result ends up with you controlling lots of people, of course you're going to do it. And if you had a suspicion that something was coming your way, you'd play along with it.
It starts with Israel attacking Iran. Now, this hasn't happened yet. There have been a number of indications that there are forces which are trying to push this into happening. You've only got to follow the news for the last 2 years to realize that the public is being prepared for a justification for this kind of thing. Iran is being set up as being the bad guys that deserve something to happen to them, and so on and so forth. Now, that's going to be the start of what is like the opening gambit in a big chess game. And the plan is to provoke Iran or China to retaliate.
You'd play along with it and let the fools run the little operation, and then you'd let somebody else go along and stamp all over it. And you'd be backing them up. I wonder if there's 2 countries like that that are possibly doing that right now. And there's a couple of little countries all running around trying to act like the same 2 countries they say that are the bad guys doing all this.